Look at the lovely images.
Yeah. So I'm Peter Politis. I'm the executive director. That was Becca. Elsewhere on your screen, you'll see Courtney. Courtney, would you wave, please? Courtney is in Tyler, Texas. She moved away from Dallas a while back, but is still working for DCP. And this is pretty much the staff. This is all of us right here. We're Dallas Center for Photography. You all know, you've seen our website, but basically, you know, the short form of our mission statement is that we believe in the power of photography. Tonight's a really good example about that. I do a lot of teaching and tutoring myself. I was a freelance photographer for 30-something years. And to me, the power of photography is not just the power of what a photograph can do, but the power of what photography does to people who are involved with it, whether the photographer or the subject. It's a pretty deep effect and subject. We have a really gorgeous gallery space at DCP, but it is sadly dark, and all the hanging hardware is still there. I was there a couple of days ago, and it's just like, you know, waiting for some pictures, but we're not ready yet. When we've all had our shots, we'll show up and do a gallery show again. So tonight we're doing the next best thing, which is virtual exhibition. And the format tonight is very, very simple. We're gonna get started here in just a minute, and Jennifer is going to talk to and hear from the 4 winners, first, second, and double third place winners, because she had a hard time deciding. And then she'll go through the remainder of the images as well and make comments about each of the pictures. If you do have questions, if you have comments, please put them in the chat and we'll monitor those, and then we will ask Jennifer about those at the end of the evening. One thing I did want to kind of promote is we have excuse me, we have a members only show and tell coming up on Monday?
Monday, yes.
Monday, thank you, Becca.
6 p.m. Central Time.
Thank you. And if you are a member, you can exhibit your pictures. I think the first 7 members can exhibit their pictures, but everybody can join in and watch and see this. And we were really excited about doing one of these in the late spring, and the late spring kind of went to hell along with everything else. And when we do this again in person at DCP, we'll have tables set up and people will bring their work in and lay it out and go around and talk about it. So this is just a virtual version of that. It doesn't cost anything to sign up for it. So I would strongly encourage you, if you're interested, please jump on the website and sign up. If you're already a member and you want to present, make that choice. You'll see the instructions there about how to do that. So Jennifer, I was introduced to Jennifer through Reed Callanan, who's the founder and director at Santa Fe Workshops. If you don't know about Santa Fe Workshops, you definitely should. And if you know about them and you've never been to a workshop there, you definitely should. I mean, this is the mecca of photography workshops. I've taken a couple of workshops there after I had started Dallas Center for Photography, and they were life-changing for me, so I can't recommend them highly enough. And a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, Reed and I started talking about some kind of collaboration, because I do channel people over to Santa Fe all the time, and they've got such an amazing teaching teacher resource pool. So we talked about who might come out, and Jennifer's name came up right away. I didn't know about Jennifer. Reed spoke very, very highly of her, and I understand why now. After her coming out and teaching and speaking at DCP, it is really rare and really fortunate when you find somebody who is creative and compassionate and focused and warm and supportive of everybody in her workshop. One of my longtime clients, who I'm not sure if they logged in tonight, said, you know, I've heard really great things about her. Is she as nice as they say she is? And I said, probably nicer, actually. So I'm really, you have to be super nice tonight, by the way, Jennifer, because I'm like totally setting this up for you. But she is one of those rare combinations. So we were really excited. She just taught a online class for us. We really are hoping to have her back once we're all vaccinated. But tonight she's going to be going through this this exhibit, this virtual exhibit. We had a very, very strong response to this. We were really excited. We had set some goals, and the goals were exceeded by almost 100%. So the idea of human portrait struck a chord with people everywhere, and in ways that I was very happy to see. We had some literal portraits, lots of very imaginative ways to show what the concept of portrait is. And so we will get into that. I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer, and you just let me know when to start the images, okay?
Right. Well, welcome everybody. I am so thrilled that we have such a good turnout of people to celebrate these images, because they are worth pausing and celebrating. They're gonna make you feel. I guarantee an hour from now, everybody is gonna feel a little bit shifted, because I had that experience when I sat down to judge them. I sat down with this plan in mind of going through all the images once, and then I was gonna look at them again the next day and make a tighter selection. An honest truth, I couldn't even select any the first time I went through them, because I looked at over 700 portraits that people had submitted, and it floored me. It made me feel. It made me feel connected to people in a way that I'm not sure it's this time as well, right? That we are all connected and isolated in crazy ways, and being that close to all these different people and looking at their stories. I ended up taking a walk after I looked at them, and part of my process of deciding the winners was some of those images stayed with me, and I thought about them while I was walking, and I thought about the people that were in them, and I wanted to know more about them. A portrait can be so many things. It can be a picture about the person, but it can also equally, I think, be a portrait of the photographer and a reflection on the way that they see the world as well. I found this quote by Frida Kahlo that I thought was appropriate for tonight. And it says, "I leave you my portrait so that you will have my presences all the days and nights I am away from you." And it made me think about the power of portraits right now. When we can't be in person, the choices you make as a photographer about how you're going to represent somebody, you're really putting a persona almost to somebody. And how neat that as photographers, like, our job is really important right now to share pictures of everyone. So I thought I would read my artist statement and then just tell you also a little bit more about what I was thinking as I judged them. So I said, I was moved, and I was reminded what it means to be connected, to be isolated, to be a hero or maybe an underdog, to be complicated, to be beautiful, to be raw, to be human. I enjoyed the broad interpretations of what a portrait is and who it can represent. The winning images were alive with emotion and story. I was most captivated by the images where the photographic techniques felt aligned to the subject and extended a deeper sense of character and mood within the frame. That's a big thing for me, like how you use all the tools you have, how you use your focus, your background, your color palette, all those little micro decisions we make as photographers, I think really become your fingerprint and your sense of style. And all of the images I'm going to share tonight, I think did a really good job of using whatever little tools they had to create character within the image. So Peter, let's hop over and look at the winning image, and we'll start there.
Okay, hang on. And there you go.
This was one of them that stayed with me when I was walking, and I thought, wow, like what a statement of right now that a portrait could be such a minimal piece of a person. If you treat the woman in this image as the main character, you only see a tiny little bit of her torso, but how connected do we all feel to exactly like this gesture right now? I bet everybody has had that sense of almost slumping over with something right now. And I thought as a photographer, there was so many ways you could have stepped on this moment. You could have went around to the front and you could have shown us everything. And I don't think that would have been nearly as effective. By not seeing the main character and just seeing this hint of a gesture, it makes it feel very, very universal to me. It's something that we can all identify with. And Catherine, I thought your use of color, sometimes images that feel simple are quite complicated in the way all the pieces come together. And I thought the clean background, the consistent like blue palette, the soft light, nothing got in the way of the gesture. Everything just supported it. Catherine, will you tell us a little more about this image and if it's part of a series, what the series is about?
Well, thank you for your kind words. I mean, they're making me tear up a little bit, so thank you. It's part of a series, and I've been working on it for a little while. It started first with me photographing my husband, and honestly, I started because I was really interested in Instagram as a research project. So I wanted to create this semi-fictional character based on my husband, to study how age was represented and received on Instagram. So I started that, but what happened was I sort of fell in love with photography again. I had put down the camera for a very, very long time. And then when I started the Instagram project, I just realized how much I loved photography. And I just sort of threw myself into it. And I had the opportunity to have a sabbatical, and I studied at ICP, and I worked on a project that then became much more about my relationship with my husband, or our relationship, or which is still about aging and a connection. And so, and I've started calling it tenure because I like that word with what this project is. So sometimes it's my husband, sometimes it's both of us, sometimes it's me, sometimes it's objects or landscapes, but I feel that it is giving a slice of life of my life, and I don't feel that's really been represented for me. So I wanted to give my take on sort of what it's like to be me at this age, navigating, age and love.
What a poignant project. And it's nice because that's something you can keep working on through this time. That's your torso then in the photograph?
That's me.
Tell us, because I'm always curious, how many takes did it take you to get this? Did it take a lot? Self-portraits are hard that way sometimes.
Self-portraits are very hard, and this was with film. So, but I think this one, it was, I took several. I probably took a roll, and one of them was it. Sometimes I go back though, and I have to do repeated shoots. But this one it just worked.
I think the power of it is that it doesn't feel set up and contrived. Like it feels like a genuine emotion to me, and that you're let into this situation. Congratulations. It's a beautiful image.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
All right, Peter. Oh, no, I'm driving. I forgot.
You got it.
That's right. I think everybody who's interested in portraiture at some point ought to give a try to doing a simple head and shoulders shot. It's kind of a classic form in portraiture, and I think it's incredibly hard to do it very, very well. You don't have the influence of the background. You don't have the influence necessarily of an exciting moment. It's all about how well can you craft the light and the subtle details that you have at your control. And I thought this was a really well executed head and shoulders straight portrait. Technically, where the focus is at is absolutely perfect. I like the decision to have him without a shirt so that you get just a hint of that tattoo, but you can't read it. And I thought all the processing really fit with the feeling of the picture. So I don't want to mess up your French name, Jean-François. Is that right? Do we have
That's
you
a
on the
bit,
call? Can you?
JF
Hi.
is fine.
Can you tell
People
us a
call
little
me
bit
JF,
about?
so that's much easier.
Okay. Can you
Yeah,
tell us
absolutely.
about this?
So this is a series about transgender men. So I did about 20 portraits. My goal was to create something extremely intimate. I didn't want this to be about the shock value of my subjects because some of them have pretty visible scars. So I really wanted this to be about the humans and the reasons why they undergo this process. So my goal was to do something very intimate. So this was actually shot in a very old school way using vintage cinema equipment, so continuous lighting as opposed to flash. So that's how I was able to create that halo of softness, I guess. So that's one portrait out of a series of about 20 that was presented a little while back.
I like the word intimate to describe it. That's such a good descriptive word. Your light, everything has that same inviting quality. And I feel like you did such a nice job of honoring your subjects. All of those choices really make you want to connect with the person. Nicely done.
Thank you.
And I tied 2 images for third prize, and I'm sure when you see them both, you'll understand why it was impossible to pick between either. Both of these images hit more of a conceptual kind of design to me, where it was the photographer and getting to look kind of inside their head. Joanne, I thought this was magic.
Thank you.
I love all of your decisions. The mirror, the outfit, the way that you're looking into the mirror, but then you catch you looking straight. But I'm really crazy about that frame. And I feel like a ton of other photographers would not have done that. They would have done the mirror, but that adds like this whole Hitchcock thing to me, where it feels a little off in a way that I loved. I thought that was such a cool decision to have put yourself into that space. It invites a lot of questions, like why you're stuck in that little space, and beautiful use of light as well. Can you tell us about this one and if this is part of a series, more about your series?
Yeah, it is part of a series that I have about 40, depending on how I would rate them, like 40 to 60 images in this Conversations with Myself. And it started out as I was making this work as a connection to basically my mother and her generation of women, and all of the clothing. When I began this project, all of the clothing and props were related to somebody that I was related to. So there was this connection that I was feeling and having as I was doing these performances. They were all performances. So the frame actually had my mother and father's wedding picture in it. And I took it out and put a mirror in it because I thought, oh, well, this could be good to use sometime. And so normally what I would do is I had taken a bunch of workshops, and I would come with a trunk of clothing, like my kids' camp trunks, and I would put tons of stuff in them and see what worked together in what location. And so it's inspired by costume, light, and location. And so these are a whole series of performances. And I guess what I would say is that I am impersonating someone else that I'm drawing from cinema and from other artists and from life but there's got to be a little bit of myself in every single one of these images. So this one is a little bit daring and direct, and yeah.
Oh, it's delightful. How fun to build. I love the idea of them all being like a performance. That idea of introducing yourself almost as a character is very cool.
Yeah, that's what I've come to determine. That is actually, when I was making the work, I didn't feel that way. But as I looked at the whole body of work, I'm like, well, that's definitely what it is. Yeah, fun.
It does have a cinematic feel too. I'm looking at the light on your face and it's amazing. Those little details I thought were really well executed across all your images.
And thank you, Jennifer, for selecting it. And thank you, Peter. And thank you, Houston. And congratulations to everybody else who is in this collection of images. It is amazing. So thank you so much.
Yeah. All right.
And it's nice to meet you, Jennifer.
You too. And Tom, we've never met before either, but I can't believe it because gosh, did you submit some powerful images. And I thought from a conceptual standpoint, you handled details in an incredible way. There's a synergy to the way my eye moves around this frame. Your use of how you use the horizon line and create, I think, power in that little girl by looking up on her is really well executed. And I loved the sense of metaphor that she was the protector kind of, right, to the hens. And this whole sense of story you wove, I thought you executed just fantastic. The sense of pattern, I love the arch at the top. Can you tell us more about this image in your series? Do we have Tom?
Might not be on the call. I don't see Tom right now, but if he joins, we might catch up.
If he joins, we'll hop back.
Yeah.
So everybody should do themselves a favor. And if you don't know Tom's work, you should look it up because he submitted an entire series of images and they were all captivating. They all painted women as these like heroine figures. And I thought they were really well done. So let's go. So we'll go through the 50 that I selected for honorable mentions here, and we'll move just a little bit quicker through all those. It was hard, and I will tell you, if you're on this call and yours didn't make this top 50, I had another 50 set in a folder that I almost emailed Peter and Becca and said, can we just do 100? Because I think all of these have merit. Hard to choose, which is fun as a juror. So sometimes I think a picture can just be about the idea of beauty. A portrait can be about trying to show off. This guy has phenomenal hair. And if you're making a picture about elegance and exquisiteness, I thought all of the technical details on this picture were handled really well. The focus is right on the mark, and so is the light. This was an interesting use of a nude in a way that just fit the frame really nicely. It created this nice tension in the corner, and I liked the light. Again, an image that makes you kind of want to ask questions. I loved the synergy that was happening here between her elbow and like that triangle it created, and then the play of the light. I thought there was a lot of tension in the composition. And I loved the sense of foreground, that you had to look back and that the focus was on her face. This was a really powerful image. Terry submitted a whole series from honoring the George Floyd protests, and that's a hard thing to do in the moment, to go out and to make pictures on the street that have lasting impact. And she had a whole series of them that incorporated different graphics in neat ways, but I chose this one because I thought this was well executed in a hard light situation. I love the sense of the background being balanced. And again, the sense of empowerment with this little girl by getting down low, and the pose of her hand on her hip, and just the moment that you were able to get. Nice execution. The energy of that line and having everything else go black. I think sometimes your eye loves the sense of a curve, and what a powerful image, again, that I want to ask questions about. And I love sometimes the use of no background that lets you really study your central figure. Really sweet. And I thought there was a neat juxtaposition here of sort of the feeling of an old formal portrait, but with these modern kiddos, and nice use of like the processing and just a sweet moment. Good use of a square frame too. Squares have a different balance, and the two figures here are represented real nicely. I like when you have an edgy character and you photograph them in an edgy way. Like let the whole style match the subject, and that light, the pattern, the gesture, I think it fits absolutely with the subject. Really strong use of color. This is one that makes you want to know more. I think sometimes pictures, it's hard not to step on something, and I would love to move the flower and to know who this subject is. I thought this was nice sense of the light. Obviously, we can all identify with this. This was obviously part of a really clever and well done project. What a representation that we can all feel in a portrait, instead of a maybe just one person, but a portrait of all of us collectively. That kind of sums up this year a little bit too, huh? I liked the edginess of the processing. It matched, it's an edgy moment. Like you're in this weird, I don't know, kind of industrial feeling room. You wonder what happened to the person, but the poppy color and that kind of cinematic feel, I also thought was perfect processing. That's a great expression. Good use of a different kiddo portrait. We've all seen the super cute kiddo portrait. I love this idea of getting that great of an expression and good light. It gives such a sense of perspective, right? You feel the sense of a parent looking down. Obviously, another really powerfully portrayed individual. The feeling of something covering somebody's face came up, I think, in a lot of pictures. And that is a powerful statement to make, and one we can all identify with right now for a lot of reasons. But I also really liked her attitude. I liked that she was in this traditional dress, but that you let her cross her arms, and that it didn't matter that it crossed the jewelry, that you let her have this real sense of stance and posture. Beautifully seen. What a fun and an imaginative picture. And what a great example of how your eye moves around the frame. My eye just does this circle pattern up and down your arm. And I think the balance and the execution are equal to the fun idea here. You really did a nice job with that soft feeling that lets you lock onto the eye. I'm crazy about the light here, Greg. This one stood out to me just as light that was so perfect for the scene. He, I think, makes it look easy here, but it sets such a like cinematic feel. And I love just the hint of the background objects, like the bowl with the fruit. but that nothing really distracts from the subject. Thought it was a nice composition too. It was fun to see how many different ways you all moved with the idea of a portrait. This is something that would be fun to see huge, so that you could really sit and like study all the different pieces. But I loved this as an interpretation of what a portrait can be, and the sense of story that can happen through that many images. This one just made me smile. I thought it was great. She looks like such a character, and what a fun way to show her off. I don't know anything about if you know this person or how this moment came about, but I think it's really fun that you see her mouth in the picture on the left and not in the one on the center. It's kind of like this extra little gift on that side. Very fun. Good use of foreground. And this one kind of challenged me too with, what is a portrait? Does a portrait have to have a person in it? And when I thought about it, I thought, I don't think it does. I think it can represent a person. And something about her smile makes you think it's about, is it about Mona Lisa? Is it about the person in the front? I spent quite a bit of time just bouncing around this image, thinking about who the person is that might be in that sweatshirt. And I thought it was a nice use of a still life and a cool idea. Also, really fun pushing the boundaries of what a portrait is. I'm not sure if this was done in camera or after, but it would be one thing to just layer an image, but the way you layered this fits so well. It's like you can just sit and kind of keep looking at it and trying to decipher which layer you're on. I thought that was really well executed. And fun. I like when people are playful and investigative with things. And I think the red sweater helps, like you actually need something to help ground a figure in the background here. Again, another portrait that feels like it's made on the street in the moment. Those are tough to do, to control and execute really well. If you've maybe just met a stranger and you're trying to create portraits, this woman has beautiful eyes and she's got such cool hair that I think the photographer did a great job of not letting anything distract. This was a good time to drop the depth of field. The extra color and the blue and the green, I think, actually helps support the red in her hair. This is one I would love to know more about. I would love to sit down and have a cup of tea with whoever made this picture, because, oh my gosh, like what is she doing out in the snow without long sleeves? And that gesture, this one hits you right in the heart. And I think technically, so many things are done really well. The sense of foreground and background are really well handled. And it's got that muted palette that I think is really nicely handled in the processing. Powerful portrait. Again, this idea of something kind of covering the face and a lot of different metaphor potential. I thought was very fun that people investigated. And I like if you're going to give us a complicated narrative that we need to sit and think about, that you gave a white background and nothing to distract from that. Ali, this picture hit me like right in the gut. It's got so much soul to it. Everything has the same emotion coming from it. That soft light, the gesture, it feels so intimate. What a powerful portrait, that gesture and that feeling of kind of being trapped inside that we can all relate to right now. And speaking of hands, Nancy, I think this image is awesome. It's got so much character within those hands. There's hand shots and then there's hand shots. And to me, this one invites a whole bunch of story It's got such a sense of gesture and almost like offering to it. But I also think that diagonal line in the back is doing something really dynamic with the frame. I think this is a fantastic use of a hand portrait. And I thought this gesture was so lovely. That's the kind of gesture that is so hard, I don't know, to direct someone into. But look at how engaging those triangles are, and the way the whole moment feels so quiet, and the light and the processing both have that same sense of quietness. This one was about freedom of speech and part of like a whole series of images. And I thought that was also an interesting concept. And David, I picked this one out of your series. I think this was the one that was a little bit closer in. And I liked that sense of almost, it's like you tease me with wanting to read exactly what the words are that she has there. And I liked that. And great use of limited depth of field again, so that there's no question what you want me to look at. Whenever somebody has a really strong technique on top of a photograph, I find myself asking, does it add to the image? Is it a gimmick that's just there for effect, or does it really support the subject? This was a great use of, she's such an edgy, cool character that I love that processing over her. That feels very, very appropriate to the subject here. Really cool use of light. This one was also part of a whole series that I thought was incredibly well executed. All those details, like the green of her skirt matching the green of the background, are so nicely handled. And this image in particular, but all of yours, I thought had just this sweet sense of light. I could tell you were very, very aware of the light you use. And it had this painterly quality that I thought, again, fit the gesture of the little girl. A beautiful environmental portrait. He's got such a face of amazing character that I think you made a good decision to not include the background, that a vertical shot and something simple, his face is enough to carry it. And I think that yellow and blue that's happening is really nice. He feels like somebody I would want to know. And I thought this image, yeah, I've been there. We all have those days when you just want to pull the fuzzy blanket up over your head. Again, like totally intriguing to make a portrait and only show the top of somebody's head. But I loved the accessories. And I think, is it Enza? I hope I'm saying that right. You have a real nice sense of balance as well. The things that feel subtle in this image, like where the hat is and the line coming down in the sheet, all those things added such a nice sense of balance to this picture for me. I thought this was just like a whisper of a portrait. And again, it was one that left me wanting to see more in a really great way. What beautiful processing, and it feels so right with the subject. That's great light. I like the sense of a simple moment, everyday moment, but it's executed in such a dramatic way. The light leaves no question where you want your viewer to look. And I thought the gesture was a really sweet one. This one as well, this feels like film, just in the way I think the out of focus went. And I like the way you're using the fence to draw us in, but I also just like how sweet that moment is, that it doesn't feel posed or postured. It feels organic and natural, like it just happened. So great. This was a fun idea. And sometimes, again, like what's happening in the image is enough that you don't want to step on it photographically. And I liked that your photograph was vertical and let room for all of those little red dots on the bottom. Great sense of atmosphere and mood. That smoke and the out of focus feeling of the steam all really lend a quality of sense of character to the moment. What a great concept. I thought this was really well conceived. And I also thought your execution was fun. That background and sort of that hot, warm color makes you think of hypervigilance. I thought your details were really well decided. And even the feeling kind of her hand pushing into her arm, all those little things help sell the story of this image to me. Such a powerful look and really well seen in black and white. I love the sense of the fence, adding this extra physical note of like form, but I think it also creates tension. I loved the use of light here, like how soft and sweet the moment felt, and that the light, I think a lot of photographers would have lost that quality. They would have over brightened this picture, and by doing that, they would have stepped on the subtleness that helps really make this picture hang together. Paolo, you had all kinds of pictures that made me laugh. I felt like they were probably so fun to do. All these different scenarios in the house of obviously somebody who missed being outside that I could identify with. And this was great. And I think you're kicking up a little flash of light maybe onto your face, which I thought was a great idea to add just a little accent since it's a complicated background, help us lock into your face. Well conceived. Beth, I love the way you move a viewer through the frame. You also had a bunch of really strong images, and this is such a phenomenal example of foreground, middle ground, background. And the curve of that path in the background is like this extra gift back there. But if I treat it like a portrait of that kiddo, you've given me a lot of information here. Exactly about his life, and it's hard sometimes to handle that large of a scene with a sense of balance, and I thought you did a great job with that. Everything about this picture screams elegance. Your subject has such beautiful verticality, like those really nice, long, beautiful, lean features, and I thought your light and also that gesture of the arm coming up really helped play into that, and that soft palette, lovely. I think it's okay sometimes if pictures are hard to look at, that if they challenge us a little bit. And my sense with this picture was that you really honored this subject. He doesn't feel uncomfortable to me. The look he's giving feels so connected. And I thought that was well handled with the light. This is just fun. I don't know when this picture is from, but I feel like we all know what kind of like sandwiches this woman would serve you if you went inside. And it's just the roundness of her glasses, the roundness of the ball. I liked it. It made me smile. I thought this was a great capturing of what was obviously really genuine emotion between these two people. That's hard to get sometimes as a photographer, to not step on it and to make it feel posed. You got to let people have room to really breathe and express themselves. And the flowers in the foreground were a nice extra layer to the image. Speaking of tender gestures, this one just tugs right at your heartstrings, I think. Everything about this is so well executed. That light, it has a sense of this mysterious forest moment that's happening. And I think the gesture is exquisite. And photographically, every decision you made really supported it. The fact that you got down low right next to them, I think is important. And this one was on the border to me. I sat and thought about it in terms of, is it a documentary shot or is it a portrait? And yet I felt like I was connected to that little girl in the picture. I liked the sense of this kind of chaos of all these different layers, and even like the mouth that's in the far corner, everything kind of leans into making you look at this girl. And I don't think you need her or her mom to look at you to feel a sense of their story. And I loved the title of Almost There. It makes you feel vested in them, like you want them to get there. This is one that needs to be big. I looked at this image, and in the back, you can see a very clear portrait. It feels like a psychological picture to me, almost like you're getting inside somebody's head, and there's all these things happening. Maybe there's an argument, or maybe there's different things happening. And I think this one's hard small, but I bet you if you saw this projected 40 by 60, there's a real feeling of being inside of somebody that I thought was fun. What a great title, The Human Odyssey, and what an authentic feeling moment. It doesn't feel contrived. It feels like something moms everywhere could identify with, right? When the kid finally peters out and kind of just flops onto you. I liked the sense of closeness between them and her arm, the protective element of it. Walter, I feel like you're somebody I want to know. Throughout all of your images, God, they've got these beautiful smiles. There was like 8 or 10 of them that I could tell were absolutely shot by the same photographer, because everybody in the pictures was just beaming. And it wasn't in this cheesy way. It was in this genuine way that let me know that photographer is funny and engaging. And I could feel it through every one of your images. And even the dog is smiling. I think this is our last one, and it's a nice one to conclude on. It kind of has that sense to it. Such a nice moment and gesture and color. And I love the sense of negative space on the left side of the frame. This breaks so many rules because it's kind of heavy to the right, and I feel like it feels somehow so balanced. I think that's our last one. Peter, do you want to take control? There you go. So we can take questions or talk for a minute about what a portrait is.
We had
My green screen is greening.
It's flashing.
It is. That's interesting. I learned some exciting stuff tonight. I'm sorry I have kind of like a George Hamilton fake orange glow going on. Turns out when you have a green screen, you need to put green over your lights. And Peter taught me all kinds of good stuff tonight. But I felt like we wanted a crowd.
Yes, it's perfect. It's exactly the number of people. Yeah. So we did have one question pop up. I think we'll have some other ones. The question was, Jennifer, I'd like to know your thoughts on if graphic art, and that's in quotes, is really photography. It looks like photographers are turning that way.
I'm open to anything. It doesn't matter to me whether it's an old process or a new thing that's pushing the envelope. I'm more interested in what people say with whatever tool they're using. So it doesn't matter to me so much if things are processed. It would if you were trying to be a journalist and you were passing it off as unprocessed. But otherwise, the bar's open to anything. And the problem I see most of the time is that people get so entranced by all these new tools and filters and techniques and cameras that they lose the important part of what it is they're really trying to say. I see that happen sometimes in small flash classes, because it's like this whole other level of light and technique that you're trying to handle. And all of a sudden, somebody who used to make these captivating, engaging portraits gets so lost in the technique of trying to light something perfect that they lose that part of it. And so to me, it doesn't matter what tools you use, but there always needs to be a guiding vision as to why they support your main message.
Okay. I don't see, here we go. So there was a question you made, excuse me, this is from Melissa. You made an interesting comment on one of the photos. Is it a documentary shot or is it a portrait? Do you not consider a documentary shot a portrait? And can you please expand on that a little bit? Good question.
That's a really good question, because I literally went through that same question pattern in my head while I looked through that series and thought, I think my definition of a portrait is pretty broad. It's something that lets me feel connected to somebody. And in that picture I did. And so I don't know if documentary as a whole is always portraits, but I think portraits can be a part of documentary work for sure. And the line is pretty fine between one and the other.
I wanted to say that we, because we're not in a gallery, and I believe this strongly, everybody involved with DCP believes that pictures need to be physical. They need to be printed, they need to be hung, they need to be given life outside of a glass screen. And so since we can't do an exhibit, we're going to be doing an exhibition catalog, basically a hardbound book of all the pictures that we've seen tonight. And it actually, it was kind of interesting when Jennifer, I kind of heard through Becca that Jennifer was like, wow, there's a lot of really good work here. Could we just let's do 100, let's do 75. And in a physical exhibit, the answer immediately would be no, because that's a huge amount of space. But then it was like, well, but all we're doing is a book. Let's just go ahead and do a giant book. But then the book's too expensive. And so we've got 54 images. The book is going to be put together here in the next couple of weeks. And tonight we're going to do a drawing. Somebody who's with us tonight will get one of those books for free. So if your work is in it, great. You just saved yourself having to buy a book, or you could buy another one and give it away as a gift. So Becca has assigned random numbers to everybody who registered tonight. And what's our range of numbers, Becca?
1 to 62.
62. Jennifer, would you pick a number, please, from 1 to 62? And if that person is still online, they will win one of these yet to be published books.
Let's pick lucky number 3.
Lucky number 3. That is
it me? Oh.
William Sands.
Is William with us?
I think he was. Yes, he is. He's here.
All right.
Yay, number 3.
Yay. You're going to get lucky number 3. I've never heard that before. So yeah, William, you'll get a copy of the book. All of you will get an email about this. We did one for our last online exhibition, and it turned out to be pretty cool. The pictures probably, they won't be in the same sequence they were presented tonight, because sequencing for a book is a whole other thing. So we'll do our best job. There's another question that just popped up. Oh, this is very good. We just did a street portrait challenge in our photo club, and I argued with the rules that the subject had to be looking at the photographer to qualify. What do you think? I think I'm going to know what you think, but what I'm seeing here is that the photo club rules said, in a very linear fashion, I would imagine, for it to be a portrait, somebody has to be looking at the camera.
I'm all about rules. I think they've got it. Absolutely. Yeah. It's not a portrait if they look away. No, I think that's crazy talk, and good for you. Good for you for arguing with them. Eye contact is such a little narrow thing to make that kind of choice on, right? We saw it tonight over and over again. Good for you for pushing back on that.
Well, your first prize winner kind of solved that one.
Right.
I mean, someone you and I both know, Sam Abel, makes a big deal in his classes about how photographs of people from behind are often more powerful than photographs from the front done well. So yeah. So I think we are done. Let me make sure. Becca, have I forgotten anything? Let me find my notes here. Nope, I think that's it. I want to say thank you to everybody who submitted. I think everybody, I hope everybody here tonight was actually included in the show. If you are here tonight and you didn't get in, I'm sorry, but thank you. The work was really extraordinary. And a big thank you to Jennifer for her time. She donated her time to do this. If you ever want to know about the power of photography, find Jennifer's bio somewhere about how she came into the world of teaching photography. It is a great story and one that will help you understand why we keep using that phrase about how photography changes lives. Lastly, if you're not a member already, consider joining or make a direct donation. Like all arts nonprofits, we've been struggling like crazy. I think we're going to make it. I think we're going to get it. I think we're going to get to the vaccine, to the vaccine stage, and then we can be back in the gallery. And I'd like to especially thank the people from overseas who went to the trouble to submit. Thank you very much. It was really great to see the work and see the locations that you were submitting from. Jennifer, you want to wrap it up?
Thank you all so much. It changed my whole week to get to spend time looking at these images. It genuinely was one of the warmest, fuzziest things I've gotten to do during this pandemic. And I'd like to acknowledge Cody Bond, who I don't know at all, but you should be in the audience always because you give such good feedback back there. Thank you for being alive in the audience. Thank you all. Keep making portraits. I was really touched by all the work.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everybody.